Writers, poets, MCs, scribes, write the story, the future. Eglinton West, word to sounds, the sights, the sense, the colors, the rhythms, the accents, the black future.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fresh Ink. My name is Weyni Mengesha. I'm the artistic director here at Soulpepper Theater. As many of you know, we have been doing Fresh Ink since we closed the theater in March, and it's something we've done every Friday. But we postponed last week's episode to give our energy and our focus the Black Lives Matter movement, which is currently in 50 states in America, all across our country, and in 18 plus countries around the world. Just to say, it has been a heartbreaking and hopeful time. It's been a time that has left a lot of us emotionally raw, but also energized by this time of change. And it so happens that the writers that we had scheduled last week to come on are people who have been in this conversation of change their whole lives. They are artists, they're change makers, they're educators, they're mentors. And so we thought it would be wonderful to bring them on the show and continue to hear their work and to talk to them about this time we're in. I also called my friend Mumbi, fellow director and artistic director, and asked her to co-host the show with me because the two of us have both collaborated with these artists and love them, and also the conversation of art and activism is something that's close to both of our hearts. So thank you so much for being here. And also we would invite you to come and join in the conversation. You can throw anything down in the chat. You can also send us an email at any time with a question or a comment to questions@soulpepper.ca, questions@soulpepper.ca. I also want to make sure before we go ahead that we do a land acknowledgement. Our friend Idris is in Louisville, Kentucky, which is the territory of the Shawnee, the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, and Osage. And Soulpepper Theater is located in Toronto or Takaranto, which is the territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Huron-Wendat. And in this moment, where there is this global reckoning, where we're all talking about understanding systems of change that are necessary, cultural and structural racism, it is so important that we recommit and we acknowledge the vital role that we can play as an arts institution in this country to actively invest in Indigenous artists and stories from the community. Important for me to say that in this time as we're talking and all reflecting on this moment. I want to introduce you to Mumbi in more detail, who's my co-host. Many of you know her, especially folks from Soulpepper, who she did our door-nominated production, The Brother Size, last year. And she, many notes today, is an award-winning theater creator and a director raised in Kenya and Victoria, BC, and based in Toronto. She's the incoming artistic director at Obsidian Theater and the founder artistic director of the door-nominated experimental theater company, IFT, which stands for It's a Freedom Thing. And she's also had other director credits at Soulpepper, including Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And she also recently did Trout Stanley for Factory Theater and Oraltorio, a theatrical mixtape for Obsidian. And she also, we remastered it at Soulpepper as well. And that was a collaboration with Motion. Hi, Mumbi.
Hi, all. So nice to see you. So nice to be here. So nice to meet you, Idris. I'm finding this moment of connecting in this room, in this Zoom room, really healing. Talking about art in this moment feels really healing to me. As you know, as a theater artist, the theater has been my medium of protest, and we are in such a time where we cannot disappear into rehearsal halls. The theater is the stage, it's the world is watching, it's live, it's life or death, and the world is watching, and we hope that they are listening. And so what it means to be an artist and an activist in this moment is something that I am really interested in talking more about and hearing from these wonderful writers who've been working in this way for a long time. And I am going to introduce you to Motion. Motion and I go way back. We met about a decade ago. Is it? Maybe about that. We met at the at Obsidian Theater through their mentor apprenticeship program, and have since she's become one of my closest collaborators. We've co-created 4 pieces of theater together, multidisciplinary theater pieces together, and she has, and what she doesn't know is that I've been a fan of her since I was in university. I'd go see her shows and read her poetry and just be blown away by this woman who activist, truth sayer out in the streets. And so I'm really honored, Weyni, to be here to have this conversation. And I'll just give you an official introduction so you know just how amazing this woman is. Motion is a playwright, screenwriter, poet, and an MC, fusing word, sound, and drama for the stage and screen. A Canadian Film Center alumnus, she is currently a writer and executive story editor on CBC's hit series Coroner. And she's also the co-writer of Aquila's Escape, which is a feature film that that's written by co-written with Charles Officer. The Charles Officer is directing, and will be released in 2020. So watch out for that. Her most recent production for the stage is Oraltorio, a Theatrical Mixtape with DJ Eloquence, which I had the pleasure of directing. And we premiered at the Riser project with Why Not Theatre, and was remounted in Toronto by Obsidian and Soulpepper, including at the groundbreaking Charlie Water Festival in Ghana, and went to Sinners in Montreal. And she has also published her 2 poetry collections, Motion in Poetry, and 40 Days. So look out for those pieces by her. And inspired by her initiation as a co-founding member of the legendary and longest running hip hop radio show, The Master Plan Show on CIUT 89.5 FM, as well as music program leader with the groundbreaking Fresh Arts Organization movement. Motion is also the currently the course director of Griots to MCs, Performance Culture and Spoken Word at York University. And that's a course that I wish I could take right now. So she's in the room right now with young people talking about this. And so we'll get to hear more about that later. So Motion, what would you like to read for us today?
Oh, so great to be here with all of you. Amazing, such energy through the virtual world, the virtual space. I'm going to be reading just some selections or scenes from a piece I've been working on called Living the Black Body. I started it as part of the Black Lives, Black Words project when it came to Toronto at the Rhubarb Festival. You know about that, Idris? And then went on to work more on it in the playwrights unit at Obsidian with dramaturge Mel Haig. And then, you know, working on workshopping within spaces, you know, with Mumbi and some great actors, but always looking at how it's developing, still very new. So it's a piece that moves between time and space. So it's not linear at this point, but it's looking at or following the main story of a character called the youth. And then there's other characters that sort of come in and out, but we're sort of looking at the real and the imagined spaces where Black bodies live, Black families, Black youth, Black women, Black elders, and the mix of the spaces of when it's your POV and when it's the other's POV. So I will start. Living the Black Body, a theatrical chorus for 5 voices and a beatbox. A rumble in the dark, the sound of a million boots. The door kicks in, black-clad, riot-suited cops invade the townhouse, a police raid at dawn. Get down, get down, get down, move, move, move. They slam grandma to the ground. They wrench her arms behind her, dig knees deep into her back, spotlight in her face. Where is he? Where is he? Who? Where is he? I don't know. Where is he? She screams, "Ah, get out of my house!" His grade 8 graduation picture falls off the wall and crashes to the floor. Scene 6, school bell rings, the sound of classroom noise, full volume and laughter. The youth falls into a desk chair. The teacher claps her hands to start the class. All right, class, happy Black History Month Day. Today we're going to talk about Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and then discuss interracial dating. And to end it off, we'll watch the film 12 Years a Slave. The youth puts up his hand. Teacher ignores him. So everyone turn to page 347. Can someone read the speech? The youth keeps up his hand. Teacher ignores him and chooses somebody else. Haley? The student Haley reads. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community. No. Just skip down to the 10th paragraph. Oh, okay. I have a dream. One day, the red hills of Georgia, the sounds of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will sit together at the table of brotherhood. The youth throws up his hand. Miss, wasn't there slavery in Canada? Pardon me? I said, wasn't there slavery in Of course not. I mean, not real slavery like in the States. I mean, it was more like servants maybe? I don't know. I don't think so. No. You see, Canada is very different. Very, very different. Wah, 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 wah. She keeps talking. The classroom noise grows louder. The youth's leg shakes, nervous, unsettled, on edge. He puts his headphones over his ears, runs a trap beat in his head, louder and louder until he can drown out the sound, the voices, and her noise. Scene 10. Change the channel. In the living room, Grandma has CNN on blast. She talks loud into the telephone. But what is this? You mean to tell me this man really win? My God, these are truly the last days. She switches to CP24. Anchorwoman Rhonda is on the screen. Details of the shooting are unclear at this time, but we have Sue on location to bring us the latest of what she's hearing down at the scene. Sue? Sue, the reporter, is out in the street, freezing in the cold. Yes, Rhonda, we are here at Queen and Sherburne, and we just have confirmed that we cannot confirm if the city's latest fatality is or is not the result of a gang-related activity. As you can see, police have cordoned off the area and no witnesses have come forward, but we do have a man on the street willing to give his opinion. She turns to the man on the street with her microphone. Well, this is a shock. I mean, we're a quiet neighborhood, safe. We have families, we have kids, children, schools and such. Things like this shouldn't happen here. It's a damn shame what this city is turning into. Oh, so you feel the city is changing? Yes, it is. Like our late great Mayor Ford said, if we continue to hug these niggers, coons, savages, animals, thugs, this is what happens. We need to go back to the way it was before. Thank you, man on the street. And we will continue to bring you the latest news from the investigation here on the corner of Sherburne and Dundas, Danforth and Main, Jane and Wilson, Kennedy Station, Yorkdale Mall, Dundas and Young, Lakeshore and Bathurst, Jarvis and Girard, Nathan Phillips Square, Cabbagetown. Back to you, Rhonda. Act 2, Scene 1. In the newsroom, in the middle of the daily headline meeting, the boss is in his swivel chair, his minions around him, sounds of the busy newsroom surround them. Cherry, the executive assistant, the real boss, pokes her head in. Coke called. What? Coke. A cola, Toyota, Starbucks too. All right. What they want, I know what they want. Close the goddamn door. Slam. Shit. All right. So what do we have on this thing? Nothing much, boss. A body? And a possible connection to, checks her notes, not confirmed yet. Police files are pretty sketchy. Yada, yada, yada. All right, that's enough. You, get down to the courts, find some information. You, see if you can start getting to some people in the streets. Find out what hood or whatever this guy is from. Stay safe, but do what you got to. And you, Still have your little friend at the division? Yeah? Okay, you know what to do. We gotta crack this. We gotta sell this. We gotta brand this. Something about guns and summer. Yeah. He presses the intercom. Cherry? Yeah? I got something. Call Coke back. And the advertising guys, get them in here now. Scene 12, a packed legal aid room. The woman and the quick-talking legal aid lawyer meet for her second 15-minute consultation. Okay, very quickly, we have some good news. Looks like he'll be able to get bail. Bail? Yes, bail, under the condition of, he rifles through his papers, but that's not what we talked about. You said very strict orders, but he didn't do any, so sign right here, and if you go back to the Crown today, you have to promise to guarantee 15,000. What? Hurry and get it back before the disclosure. But I don't have 15,000. No problem. Maybe you have property, a second mortgage, RSPs, any of those work? I don't have that. Bonds too, and RESP maybe, any type of savings, or a guarantor is almost eligible. But then we can sort of work on, maybe arranging to plead guilty to a lesser charge. Guilty? Looks at his watch. Okay, time. So I have to bring this meeting to a close, fill out the forms. Once the financials are approved, I said I don't have 15,000, or else your son will stay in custody until, now let me see, this could be anywhere from 6 months to probably closer to 18 months, according to the backlog for scheduled court dates. Okay, I get it. I'll figure it out. Slaps the paper in front of her. Of course he will. Sign right here. Scene 14. A ball bounces and echoes in the school gym. It's lunchtime. The youth and a bunch of youth sit in a circle. Officer Jim, wearing a sweatshirt, baseball cap, and running shoes, talks as he bounces a basketball. His sweatshirt says, "Blues from the 6." All right, so like I was saying, we're here to be your friends. Mondays, we'll play basketball. Tuesdays, basketball. Wednesdays, basketball. Thursdays, school and strategies, and Friday, pizza lunch and basketball. You'll be like the school safety ambassadors, or more like the SSC, school safety crew, or squad. Which one sounds better? No one answers. Squad or crew? No one answers. Okay, we'll go with squad, but this can change. This is all up to you. We want to make it your own. Cool? No one says nothing. Cool. So firstly, we'd like to thank your teachers for recommending each one of you for this special program. This means that your teacher sees something in you and feels you can make a real difference with positive role models, help you to reach your potentials, be positive citizens. And that's what the school safety squad or crew is all about. And we'll be here every day to be your supporters, like your cheerleaders. You can think of me as your big brother. Yeah, and you could talk to me about anything. Officer Becky comes in with the pizzas. Pizza's here, come and get it. The youths jump up and rush the table. The youth's boy goes too. The youth grabs the back of his shirt. Where you going? His boy says, yo, I'm hungry, fam. And his boy rushes off to get his slice. Officer Jim keeps bouncing the ball. He looks steadily at the youth. Hey, son, you're pretty tall there. Come on, let's see what you got. Let's see if you can get it. Officer Jim ducks the ball behind his back and then between his legs. The ball hits his knees and dribbles off across the gym. You got me off guard. But this time, Officer Jim chases after the ball and shoots it to the youth. It bounces off the youth's crossed arms and rolls across the gym. By the pizza, Officer Becky turns on some Drake and tries to dab. The youths are dying. Hey, Officer Jim. The youth says nothing. Well, what's your name, son? The youth says nothing. Where's your name tag? The youth says nothing. Officer Jim pulls up a chair. Look, son, you need a job this summer probably, right? I think I could help you with that. The youth says nothing. You're probably smart too, yeah. But we're doing tutoring here after school. Maybe you could use some of that, eh? Officer Jim brings his chair closer. You look like a pretty popular guy, You probably know a lot of kids in this school, right? So, if there's anything you want to talk to me about, bro, feel free, you know what I mean? Anything at all. I'm here to help you. And if you want, you can help me too. The youth just looks at him, turns his back, gets up and walks out. Officer Becky blows her whistle. "Doo! Hey, you can't leave here till 12:30. Get back in here." The whistle blows again, but the youth is out. Scene 17. Grandma on her cell phone, the sound of texting. The youth is out on the street, walking out of the subway. Grandma squints as she texts, the sound of the youth's phone receiving the text. "Hello, it is your grandma. Did you get to school on time? Remember to come home right after school." A few moments later, "Didn't I tell you to put out the garbage this morning? It's your grandma." He mouths the words along with her. "Grandma is writing to you. What time I tell you to come home?" He recites along with her. "I talk to you hard. I talk to you soft." He scrolls through his messages. "You don't hear, he who don't hear will feel." He starts to text her back, but he stops when he hears a car pull up. "Yo." He looks down at 2 police in a cruiser. "What's your name? Where are you going? You live around here? You have any ID?" Scene 21. The sound of dirt. A shovel digs into the frozen ground. The youth steps out of a limo. The preacher is preaching, and older ladies sing hymns. "What a friend we have in Jesus." The youth grasps the bronze handle and picks up his side of the heavy, heavy coffin. "What a privilege to carry." Preacher leads the procession across the graveyard. God, in his infinite wisdom, God, the greatest of planners, God, the master of mercy, wanted to call him home. Together, 7 of them, youths, struggle, heave and stumble towards the hole. God makes no mistakes. It is cold, snow still on the ground. Wet mud soaks their brand new dress shoes. They say everything happens for a reason, but my God says that the wages of sin is death. Young shoulders shoulder the weight of the dark march to the grave where their boy will lay. The ladies sing, "Oh, what peace we often forfeit." The sound of a gunshot. Everyone ducks, bodies drop. The youth lies down and takes his place in the coffin.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that emotion. I'm a bit familiar with this piece because of a workshop last year, and hearing it again now thinking about it today. A quote by Anthony Morgan, who is the head of the anti-racism division of the city of Toronto, stood out to me. And he says, "Canadian racism isn't okay because we supposedly do racism better than Americans. Racism is inherently violent and destructive, regardless of how it is manifested. When we fail to focus on this fact, we risk being sidetracked by fruitless debates about good racism versus bad racism, when our collective standard and social aspiration should be no racism. The borders between us do not make the power and pains of anti-Blackness any less real. Anti-Blackness is borderless." And I know that Anthony also spoke at an event at Soulpepper connected to Jesus Hoppit, the A Train. And Weyni can tell you how to know more about him. But Moshin, I wanted to ask you if this resonated, hearing that quote in your piece, and if you can speak about if that resonates with you and your inspiration for writing this story.
Yeah, it totally resonates, and it's very, very true. Even words such as Canada does racism better is in itself a disturbing thought or statement, as if there should be or is degrees of racism, degrees of marginalization, and where the play came from, when the question that was put towards the playwrights who came together for the Black Lives, Black Words project was to create a piece that was speaking about responding to the question, do Black lives matter now? Right? And so these are some of the scenes that came out of my mind, and it didn't come in a way that was a linear, beginning, middle, end. It came as scenes, very much so, as in these spaces and sounds and places and languages that are used at, when it comes to living the Black body experience, but also when it comes to making assumptions about the Black body experience. The Black body in places such as institutions, whether it's, the legal aid office, whether it's in the basement of a police station, in a school classroom, in an after school program, in CAS, in the bank, in the university, and on TV. And so the sort of melding of thinking about the action as well as the dialogue, thinking about what the characters are saying is just a part of it. It's also about the action and what's happening around them and whose voice is taking precedent in that scene. Yeah.
That's amazing. I wanted to sort of zoom out for a second too, just in this current moment, as you're thinking about all the work that you have made in your life. I mean, Mumbi and I have been reflecting a lot about this like as artists, how we interact with this moment when, just the very act of making art that is about you, your Black experience, in a culture that has a dominant culture that doesn't actually reflect you, like that alone, just being an artist who's doing that is activism in some way. Mm-hmm. And how do you guys feel about that thought? And also, how do you interact with this moment? Do you feel compelled to use your art, or do you feel to get out there on the street? What's your feeling now?
Well, I feel that art is part of protest. Art is in the street. Right now we're seeing, artists making murals downtown, in Graffiti Alley to speak to the moment. We're hearing songs coming out and MCs spitting lyrics and bringing out lyric videos. And if we didn't have the art, what would people sing on the front lines? You know what I mean? Or what rhythms would we be carrying in our body, to chant? The things that we quote come from books, or come from plays, or come from novels and movies and television, that become part of our discourse. So the artist doesn't live as a separate being from what's happening. We've always been creating art for our moments and our movements. And we're taking inspiration from those who have come before, those who have laid foundations for us, and then continuing that work. So I feel it's just being, being and living and creating as we always have, and just realizing the urgency of where we are in this moment. And that will, I think, in many natural ways, and also in uncomfortable ways, will breathe through our creations.
How about you, Idris?
Well, let's see. Hold on. Is this saying I'm muted? No, I'm good. Okay, good. You guys can all hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, good. Just making sure. Let me rewind. First off, that was really awesome motion. Like, just seeing you. Like, who needs actors? Who needs a cast?
Right.
He was doing that. So that was dope. It's also like really cool to be in this conversation. I think that when I'm asked to do, I do a lot of these every week. I do a lot of different kinds of virtual conversations, like we all are doing. And some days, every time I get asked to do one, there's a part of me that's like, oh, you're doing too many of these. And then there's a part of me that's like, no, it's very important for you to be publicly alive. And alive, thinking, speaking, celebrating, telling the story. I think that story, sound, orality, all of that is innately an act of resistance, because stories of marginalized people, but more specifically stories of those of those of us of the African diaspora, have been suppressed. I mean, just if we're going to the continent, to motherland, like the way that Africa as a continent has been positioned in the Western dominated narrative of the world, has been suppressed. So that from all the way into you get into to all the various places where people were enslaved, all the misinformation, and that's where racism comes from. Racism is the intersection of misinformation, ego, and power. And and so for us, as those of us who are of the story, who are griots, and in that tradition, we're anointed to do that work. So of course it is. Like, that's our part. It takes the poets, the protesters, the policymakers, the parents, like everybody, to affect change. It's not just, so when people get into this ridiculous thing of like, it's one person, it's never one person. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love to tell people that this little fun fact, because I'm a trivia nerd. Martin Luther King Jr.'s, most iconic, and kind of, I'm going to say this, and I know I'm going to catch heat for it, and I don't mean this disrespectfully. There are no bigger fans of Martin Luther King Jr. than Idris Goodwin. But the I Have a Dream speech, as part of the March for Jobs and Justice, this iconic defining I Have a Dream speech, it was Mahalia Jackson who told him, "Hey, yo, Martin, tell him that part about the dream." Because like he would, Martin used to recycle. He would have bits and things that he would just sort of tap into the spirit and just go. But he had all these different speaking points that he would sort of flip and put together on the moment. And so Mahalia knew about his dream bars, I call them, and she was like, "Hey, yo, Martin, like talk to him about the dream." Right. So it's like Mahalia Jackson, gospel singer, an artist who was like, who was there next to him, like, yo, man, like, just, I'm watching the show go down. I'm feeling the audience. Like, now you need to say this to them. You know what I'm saying? So we've always got a critical role in that. So I think our work is whatever it needs, the people need it to be. So when the people need lullabies, we come with the lullabies. When people need protest music, we come with the protest music. When the people need upliftment, we come with that. That's our job.
Yeah, amazing. And how do you feel about this moment? Is it energizing you to write, or is it overwhelming? I'm curious about that.
No, I mean, I've been saying this a lot. It's like, there is, the narrative you hear a lot as a Black person is that you are in a state of crisis, that there's a crisis, drug, prison industrial complex, poverty, epidemic, the drug epidemic, these words are always associated with us. There's always some urgency, and it's true. So for me, I've always been writing from that position. I've always been writing from the position of we're still getting somewhere. We're still trying to get somewhere. So that to me, there's never been a separation, because the moment I realized, like, I've got to write from my real place of experience, and then the ancestors come in, like that's what we're doing. Like, we're, to me, Black Lives Matter is my Ars Poetica.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're doing.
You have this beautiful quote that I found that you said Black art has been not only the production of objects, it's been the mode of survival. The song served as veiled maps of escape, the poetry as protest and a rallying cry.
Bars. Yeah.
Bars. Yeah.
I gave myself bars.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I also want to talk about the fact that the two of you, you write in different mediums. You're both multidisciplinary artists in all the mediums. Just as a question of around form, how do you know when something's going to come out through, hip hop or, beat? Like, how do you know?
Motion.
That's a great question. It's not the easiest question. I think sometimes just like whatever hits the page first, because because sometimes, you know, let's say for instance, okay, you're writing a play now, but then why does it sound like a movie? You know, it just, you know, or okay, it's supposed to be a poem, but you know, we need a poem, but for some reason there's a beat that's, you know, that is just making it go 16 bars, or, you know, whatever it may be. I think it's sort of trying to allow the form to come through the creation and not feel, how would I say, not feel closed by, oh, it has to be this form. I think that there's also thought about, okay, what is this being created for? Do you want this on a stage? Or what is the reason that I may be writing this? Is it for my voice? Is it for many voices? Is it for other voices, you know? And that may also come into it. But I think the openness to letting the forms layer over each other and breathe together, mash up and mix up together is part of the multidisciplinary aspect.
Yeah.
What do you think, Idris?
Yes, concur. Also, I think that, you know, hip hop is also it's also like an attack. It's like the attack on rhythm, the attack on story, the perspective, the point of view. So, you know, there's also kind of an unspoken thing, a certain energy, you know, an urgency, a level of just aliveness, you know what I mean? And then there's just the intersection of cultural influence, you know, the vocal, you know, all of it. I think it, you know, you said a mix up or a mashup. I think that that's right. And so I think that, you know, so it's like the question is like, you know, when Ice Cube is making rap records, is he more hip hop than when Ice Cube is acting in a film? And I contend that, no, he's doing hip hop acting. Like, you know what I mean? Like Karis once says, you know, hip hop is in you, it's you. It's not something you do. It's just like, it's something you live. It's just who you are, you know? Like when Good Morning America asked Ice Cube to come on their show, this was right around when George Floyd, you know, the video of George Floyd was released. He said, I'm not going on Good Morning America. I'm in no mood to tell America good morning. That's a hip hop response. You know what I mean? Like, because that's a bar, because that's also a bar. That's also not like, no, thank you. I reject your invitation to come on the show. He's just like, he's flipping. He's like, I'm not trying, because it's right, because there's a rhythm, there's even a rhythm to that. Like, I'm in no mood to tell America good morning. Like, that's, yeah. So,
yeah. And Motion, how does it feel with this piece, reading it now in this context? Does it feel different to you? Like from a year ago, there's different things that are resonating to you now?
You're speaking to me even more so in sort of the answer that I find a lot of Black folks are constantly having to answer these days, these questions of, well, you know, why does it have to be Black Lives Matter? You know what I mean? Or, you know, what is it that, you know, I don't really understand this. Why are people, you know, throwing bottles through and stones, you know? And so when I'm listening to it now, I'm like, yeah, these are some of the reasons, you know, and it makes me even more thinking, oh, what's going to be the next act, the last act, you know, how much more, because in this, I'm trying to play with also just like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you know, some parody and also some ways of looking at things in a really strange way, where you can be one character one way and then switch into another role or another voice. So thinking about how much I can stretch it, because we're living in times when you don't know what's going to happen from day to day, you know, and right now it feels at times it's very real, and also it's very, you know, Twilight Zone-ish, you know, when you're seeing, you know, people in Congress wearing kente cloth and bending on their knee. You're like, you know, what happened? What happened in 2 weeks? You know, we were locked down the other day, and now, you know, what is happening? You know, what you were seeing people, you know, Cecil Rhodes and all in Columbus with their head cut off and thrown into the river. Damn.
Yeah.
What era are we in?
Yeah.
You know, and yeah. So just the absurdity is the word I was looking for. You know, the absurdity, and when it clashes with reality.
And the way your piece moves so quickly from one scenario to another, for me, I feel is really capturing a lot of what I'm feeling right now, where the layers are just so deep in terms of how this moment is having a ripple effect. I don't even know, like I have no idea how long it will take to get to the bottom of the feeling, but it's like just the clashing layers of all the different places that your body has been as a Black person moving in this world, in whatever city you're in, and all clashing together in this moment. Like all that trauma or all of those experiences kind of all coming together, you know, with people's heads being cut off, like statues being thrown, you know, it's just, yeah. So there's something about that resonated in a different way, hearing it now than, you know, a year ago, in terms of just this moment in particular.
So I want to, I realized I didn't actually get to the intro of Idris. The problem is the bars were happening. So let me tell you about who was giving you these bars, okay? Let me tell you a little bit about more. He's a breakbeat poet, director of the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center at Colorado College. His plays include In This Corner, Cassius Clay, How We Got On, Hype Man, and This Is Modern Art. His poetry books include the Pushcart nominated These Are the Breaks, Can I Kick It? And Human Highlight, Ode to Dominique Wilkins, co-written with Kevin Koval. Idris has also appeared on HBO Def Poetry Jam, NPR, BBC Radio, and Discovery Channel. He also taught at the Department of Theater and Dance at Colorado College. And I like this, I kept it in. He was voted the best teacher of the year in 2015, which my heart. He most recently served 2 seasons as producing artistic director at Stage One Family Theater in Louisville, Kentucky. He's passionate about cultivating new audiences in the arts. He actively serves on both the advisory boards of Theater for Young Audiences USA and Children's Theater Foundation Association. A catalyst for culture, Goodwin uses his full creative powers to galvanize people to the community square. He's a creative voice for change, impassioned by art for social good. So, I mean, the two of you, it's interesting how you guys have been also living sort of parallel lives. I mean, I can't tell you how sad I am that I can't rewind my years at York University and take MCs to griots, that motions teaching at York University. No such thing when I was going there. I mean, it's just, and the two of you reshaping education in this way. And as you're saying, it's on every levels, and you guys are working on every level. And it's amazing because Mumbi knows this, but when I was in university at York, I actually had to propose a whole other 4th year, my graduating year, and created my own syllabus called the African Canadian Aesthetics in Theater. Luckily, they signed off on it and allowed me to do that. But now, young kids, now generation can just, people are already asking in the chat, like, what's her course? I want to take it. I go to York. Yeah, now, I mean, it means so much. It means so much. But I want to hand it over to you, Idris. What are you going to read for us?
Yeah, I thought I'd share a couple things. So I have 2 things. I have like some breakbeat poems and a section of a new play that I'm working on that I'm in process with. So I'll start with the poem. So this is from my book, Can I Kick It? Which came out on Haymarket Books as part of the Breakbeat Poets series. And because and I wrote this book came out last year, but there's 2 poems in there I'm gonna share with you because I've been tracking the whole, I'm obsessed kind of with statues and statues coming down and why they come down, and this question of what are we going to put in their place. So these are 2 poems about petitions that went out a couple years ago around we want to take certain statues down and we want to put different statues up. So this first one is called The Rain, and it's based on a petition to replace the statue of Christopher Columbus in Virginia with a statue to hip hop icon Missy Elliott. This is called The Rain. How. How. You even let it go this long. Extended version mixed good, but mastering wrong. It's tragic, which is why I laugh. How you let it get this bad. Appreciate the ass, but statues can't dance. And you know how I like to shake my future and past. The great fake late explorer limb chopper, kiss my ass. I appreciate the honor, know the feeling's imperative. Rebel flags still flap, belt buckles still snap. Statues drop out like bass lines, come down but hate they can't bury it. Until they do, this Black woman rap like the headdress on Harriet Tubman. My body stay bumping, statues can't go clubbing. So instead put a speaker where my imposter stands. Bump my jams across colonial land. Let the reverb disturb the buried, the disease they carried, the echo who follow. Let my bounce caress the bruises, every wound nurse it. Whips, handcuffs, put that thing down, flip it, reverse it. I live to make you feel alive. That's all I'm down for. Don't prop me outside. I can't stand the downpour. The rain. Okay.
Bars.
Thank you.
Take my future and past. Bars.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The book is Can I Kick It? Anyway, so the next poem. So George Floyd, we know, was murdered in Minneapolis. And Prince, the artist known as Prince, God rest his soul. I would like to think that Prince and George Floyd are kicking it together. So there was and actually they just knocked down a statue of Christopher Columbus in Minneapolis. But this poem was written back in 2017 when there was a petition to replace a Christopher Columbus statue with a statue to Prince. So I imagine if Prince was a statue, what he would say to the people. Dearly beloved, you've gathered under my purple gaze against this twin gray. You birthed this monument, copy and pasted me over another explorer. I too searched for new land, stood stern, firmly scanning a new plateau. I got lost too, but I looked to the moon. It always led me to you. And when I got to you, I did not terrorize. I played you a tune. Now let us resume. Bodies weren't built to last, but in this form, I can remind you daily. A blank face may say it all, and two cheeks say even more. Do not smile when a smirk is necessary. If you must, when you must throw shade over the blinding glow of mediocrity, throw it hard. Know all the colors in a prism, feel the fabrics on the loom, live between funk and rock, Batman and Joker, between masculine, feminine. Let the world know you're being enslaved when your output is held captive, running its strings across bars. But do become slave to exploration, get lost, feel the waves below the hull guide until you hit land. Climb down, let your Andre #1 heels collide with sand of this land only new to you. Listen for the metronome, and when invited, release all the past inside. All your Bootsy and Jimmy and James will kick sand to win. Your fingerprints etched onto every grain will be carried across the Great Lakes, across interstates, farms, mountains, swamps, and sewers, curbs, corners, out car windows, up the side of the highest rises, through the antennas, and out across the galaxy. Bodies weren't meant to last, but the reverb dance eternal. But I have gone astray. Forgive me, I am dreaming. As I say this, dreaming as explorers do, through all space, through all time. Thank you very much. The book is Can I Kick It? Real quick too, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention when we came into the show, you all were playing the Can I Kick It mixtape. So I collaborated with a really dope group here in Louisville, Kentucky called Rhythm Science Sound. They're producers and educators. They teach beat making to young people, but they're also dope producers and DJs, and we collaborated where some recordings of these poems were married with their original beats. And so there is a track that Prince poem that I just read is on there. So Can I Kick It mixtape? It's on Bandcamp. It's free, or like it's sliding scale, whatever. Check it out.
It's really, really good.
Amazing.
Market Books. People on the chat are already saying, puts it in my e-cart. It's already being bought right now. Yeah.
Respect. Great. So I got one last piece for you. This is now switching gears. This is I'm working on this play called the Ollie Summit, and it's about, it's based on a historical event. This is actually now the second play I've written about Muhammad Ali. And so this is about a real event that happened in 1967, shortly after he changed his name and said he was not going to fight in the Vietnam War because of his religious beliefs. And they hadn't made a decision yet. And shortly before the Supreme Court decided to strip him of his title, he met at the Black Economic Forum in Cleveland, Ohio, with all the prominent athletes of the time. So Jim Brown, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, all these folks. So imagine basically it's like he was Colin Kaepernick. So imagine Colin Kaepernick meeting with like LeBron James and Serena Williams, like behind closed doors. And they had a closed door meeting where they were like, yo, brother, what's going on? Some of these guys were trying to talk him out of it, And so I'm writing this play for Actors Theater of Louisville. Muhammad Ali's from Louisville, by the way. I'm writing a play imagining what was said in that room. So this is a monologue sort of in the voice of Ali. It's called Soldiers. When I was a boy, I used to love the Lone Ranger, Superman, Tarzan, G.I. Joe. Heroes, My pals and I would always ask each other, who would be who? Who would you rather be? Who's the real hero? Lone Ranger did what was right, no matter if it lined up with law. That's why he wear the mask. He know there might be some repercussions to the idea of what's right. But who want to live under a mask? Superman used every ounce of his power to be good to folks, but he just fell out the sky like Jesus. Who can live up to that? Tarzan? Well, come on. Even as a boy, I knew that was a fib stretched out. White man go to the jungle and now he runs it. Matter of fact, I don't think I actually liked Tarzan that much. But G.I. Joe, he was it, ready for everything. The best thing about G.I. Joe, he wasn't a captain or a commander or some fancy general. He was an average Joe, ready for everything. I identified with him. Thing people need to realize, I've been a soldier. All of us really, enlisted since birth. Them signs that read white only, that's the barbed wire. Water hoses, dogs, tear gas, batons. We are all in the trenches. We go out on them courts and fields. We obey rules of engagement, shot clocks, the bell, no low blows, no hanging on the rim, no mask pulling. And we bring back gold. Championships, glory, we do that. 7 years ago, when I went to the Olympics, represented this country in Rome, I got to see some of the sights, all of the beautiful sculptures and relics, and the tour guide was talking about why it fell. That's what everybody want to know. This great, great empire, so-called anyway, what was their downfall? How did this great empire crumble? And I raised my hand and said, they had slavery, didn't they? And the tour guide said, yes. And that's when I knew, right then and there, any land that practiced slavery is gonna fall. God frowns on this practice. Empires built by slaves will fall. And when I got back from Rome with that gold medal, a champion, not just for the so-called colored man, a champion of the United States of all men, I saw barbed wire in my own home. How am I supposed to be the champion, but I'm ducked in the trenches, told where I can go and can't go, like a child? They still calling us boys. So this choice I've made ain't about whether the boy does his duty, if he is in fact a loyal subject under the king. We don't sit here in Cleveland to find out if the boy is brave, if the boy is strong, if the boy is fast and pretty, because we know I'm fast and pretty. We don't sit here in Cleveland to find out what the boy stands for. Stands? It ain't about standing. It's about kneeling, humbling myself before Allah, before the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We don't sit here in Cleveland because I am a coward. We sit here in Cleveland because of my allegiance. I pledge my allegiance to the fight for Black people to be liberated, because that's what men do. Thank you.
Wow. How is any of it verbatim from his interviews or anything, or is it all your imagination?
No. It's all just imagined, because nobody knows what was said behind those closed doors.
Yeah, it's legendary, right? I actually saw. I pulled this one quote because I knew you were writing about the summit, and it was something that Bill Russell said about it. He said he envied Ali. He was like, he has something I have never been able to attain, and that's something very few people I know possess. He has an absolute and sincere faith. I'm not worried about Muhammad Ali. He's better equipped than anyone I know to withstand the trials that we all have. And what I'm worried about is the rest of us.
Wow.
Big Bill Russell, yo. Yeah, man.
But that it does feel like the Last Supper or some kind of a painting, right?
Yeah, totally.
That pressure on
picture.
him.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that it's come back up in your work. I mean,
Yeah.
What is it with your obsession with him particularly? Tell me.
So many things. I mean, you know, one, just the era I grew up in. So I heard the writer Dave Eggers talk about this. Actually, he was like, you know, he's like, the era I grew up in, he was like, that was kind of post Ali in his prime. So he goes, I knew Ali mostly as like this public intellectual. He was like less so than like a fighter. I knew him more as this thought leader. And so, yeah, I think that's where I fall into is like, I'm a Reagan baby. Like I came up 70s, 80s, 90s. So Ali was more like, we saw clips of him, but I knew he was great just because of his legend, you know, and really more so because he's like, I call him, there are those like, there's like Kool Herc and there's, you know, the guys we consider like these are the founders of hip hop, but then they're like the spiritual godfathers of hip hop, which is like, is Muhammad Ali, James Brown, Gil Scott-Heron, and Bruce Lee, right? Is that they're the roux, they're like, you know, but yeah, because he was, you know, he was rhyming, he was just poetry in motion. He was art. He just was art. He was just this giant of a spirit and a once in a lifetime person. And so, but it's really just been kind of a random series of events. I got invited to write a play about Ali as a boy growing up in Louisville. This is, and in this corner, Cassius Clay, fell in love with the city of Louisville. It's part of the reason why I live here now, or what brought me here before. And through my relationship with Actors Theater Louisville and Robert Barry Fleming, the incoming executive artistic director, you know, had that, you know, and he lived in Cleveland before. And so this was a passion project for him. And I was like, anything about like, of course I'm gonna write about it, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
I don't want to hog. I feel like there's so many questions from the audience, but I'm so like wrapped. But they do want to know, one question from Kathy is, she really wants to know what your influences are for two of you. Who are people that you have sort of looked up to as artists that influenced you?
Motion.
Oh, so I'm here listening to what you're gonna say. Wow, there's so many. One of the first people who came to my mind is James Baldwin. You know, in regards to the way that he wrote and the way that he wrote in such personal, you know, Black people as human beings ways, and then also, you know, also his political, social, you know, bonfire type of ways as well. I think that those two, being able to do both so masterfully is, you know, something that it's just one of my inspirations, you know. Let's say like an MC, like let's say Nas, you know, who's able to move between so many different, you know, types of themes and subject matters, but like flow and lyricism. Mm-hmm. So, but there's many, many more. Those are just the two that dropped off my mind.
Yeah. Let's see here. Influences. Well, I mean, you know, I named a lot. You know, Muhammad Ali, True. James Brown, Bruce Lee, Gil Scott-Heron. But I'll say Harriet Tubman. Oh my gosh, who's the sister? I really like Rhapsody a lot. The MC Rhapsody. I've been listening to a lot of her music lately. Yeah, I got millions of heroes. You know, I usually write about them too. Like, you know, that's the fun thing as well. But yeah, my children, my sons, you know.
Yeah. The cycles really, like, you know, I think about you writing this Ollie Summit piece. The cycles, right? Like you mentioned, Echoes of Kaepernick. I mean, it's just, that's the crazy part of I think why so many of us have expressed exhaustion and some, you know, dealing with this is because a lot of it is just, it's the going on and on. Actually, Toni Morrison has one quote that says, the very serious function of racism is distraction. It keeps you from doing your work. It keeps you explaining over and over again your reason for being.
Yeah. That's yo, she man, I feel like when she passed, you know, as we lose more and more of our giants, I get like this tinge of like, we got to step up, yo. It's odd because we're losing them, and they're like, I've given you the roadmap.
Yeah.
And she was so, I just to think about, she's equipped us for this moment. And Baldwin. I mean, these people they could see the future. And that's why I tell folk, like, I think for writers, you know, of the diaspora, like artists of diaspora, like that's what we're doing. You know, we're seeing into the future. You know, it was the 30-year anniversary of Fear of a Black Planet, Public Enemy, and also America KKK's Most Wanted by Ice Cube. And those albums are about right now. They're about right now, and they're roadmaps. You know, it's incredible. So
it's mind blowing hearing your work. I've never heard your work before. It's such an honor to hear that. And you know, and when I saw that you were going to do a piece on this summit, it was embarrassing that I didn't know much about the summit. I was like, oh, man, this is like, I didn't really know much about it. And I was the thing that struck out to me is a similar thing we're going now, is this whole being forced to compartmentalize who you are as a Black person. Like, you know, like, okay, when you're you just play football, or just, you know, just be a boxer and don't be a Black body in that moment. And you know, that's a huge conversation we're having within our community right now as artists. It's like, you know, you are being allowed to bring your fullness of who you are to the work that you're doing. And so that really, wow, like, and your imagination in terms of imagining the past and imagining the future. I never even thought about statues being you know, put back up. It was like, yes, they're down. And then to just think about a statue of Prince and Missy, that's like, because a big question right now, I think, as Black artists, it's like, what's next, and what's the future? What's, you know, what are we imagining for the future? I mean, there was a huge movement after the civil rights movement in art in terms of Black futurism and you know, and now we're in this moment, and you know, so I just wondering if you had thoughts about that, you had things about that are bubbling within you in terms of where we go from here as artists, activists.
Motion.
Well, I was going to say, well, just hearing the space that you put Missy and Princeton, you know, it's making me really think about Afrofuturism and mythology, you know, and how, especially if we go 200 years in the future, 500 years in the future, how those who are living and breathing now and doing, you know, what we love or feel is great, but it just is. But when people are retelling the stories later on, they have a divinity to them. They become myths. They become, you know, they grow wings. You know, you know, there might be a Church of Tupac. There might be a, you know, like there is now one for John
Kanye. I was gonna say
John Coltrane.
I was gonna say that's what Kanye's trying to do.
Yeah, but especially when you don't have to try, when you just are being, and then your legend carries on, you know. And so I found that piece was just, you know, so illuminating, and the flow and the style, you know, and being able to put that type of rhythm on the page is always exciting, you know, because that's the type of the scriptures that will live, or scripts that will live on and on, you know. So yeah, and so it's always funny because myself, and whenever I talk to, you know, DJ Eloquence, are always like, yo, we're in the future, man. We're actually in the future. You know, all the things that, you know, that they had. So it's like, okay, so now what? You know, you know, because we feel often in some ways that we are in this future that has been forecasted, you know, the type, you know, we haven't done all the technology, but we always feel it's there, you know. And even us right now being able, you know, through this COVID season now, connecting in a completely, it's not a new way, but a more intense way across border lines, because we cannot go somewhere, we cannot go meet each other, so we're taking to these places and and reinventing the use of Zoom. We're reinventing the use
Right.
of technology, just like, you know, Grandmaster Flash did with a,
Yeah.
you know, with some equipment, and said, hey, oh shoot, yeah, when you flip this back and forth, you know, I'm gonna make this mix into this, or whoever it is said that is the thing, you know. We've constantly used our art and reinvented and used especially when we've been shut down or locked down, we find another way to communicate, find another way to channel, another way to reach to each other. And we're seeing that, you know, turned up 100 right now through these airwaves and virtual waves, you know. So yeah, it's just interesting to see where we're at and think about where we'll be tomorrow.
Yes.
Yep, it's daily. I mean, it's really a daily grind, daily operation, and I think that it's all about us building. You know, it's building time. It's building time. You know, we have folks' attention now, and they're like, okay, like I hear you. I mean, you know, the ones we know. I don't know, but it's also time for us to connect with each other too. That's really a big thing, and that's the blessing of this happening in a time when we have this technology, is that we're able to connect, you know, across oceans, across borders, things like that, and see each other and you know, begin to build.
You know, hearing you just even talk about Ollie and the faith he had and the way he was able to stick against, I mean, I can't imagine probably one of the, you know, enemies of America at that point, with that position, you know. That faith, I think, is really important in this moment, because sometimes I can get overwhelmed by thinking, this is the moment, the door's open, we have to strategize, we have to do everything right now, you know. Where it's like also healing, health, actually, you know, it's, you know, like, you know, it's just soothing to be, even just to hear the way that you are pacing yourselves as artists, and faith, I suppose, is what I guess is really encouraging me. That we have to start not assuming that the worst, that we have to start assuming that actually this is that change is here, and we're going to we have to work with that assumption in a way.
And change, yeah, because things never stay stagnant, but there are these times of, you know, when I guess everything is turned up, you know, turned up to another degree, different times or eras. And the human race, you know, has been going through a time of a lot of mourning, a lot of not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. What is happening? What's this plague? What, you know, what does it mean? What's the truth? What's a lie? What, you know, who's creating something? Who's blinding us? Who's opening our eyes? Like, there's all these very, I find, conflicting emotions, as well as conflicting thoughts about what to do or what's the next step. And I find that, you know, the art is one of the ways that we can navigate, we can utilize to navigate, to ask the questions, to tell the stories, to archive, to conversate between each other. That's just one of the ways. There are many, and us as a people thinking about, okay, what is my contribution? What do I know? You know, what is it that I was listening to somebody the other day, I can't remember who said it, but it was like something about the difference between like something like unity and unification. Like maybe it's more about like having a common goal, even though you might have different ways of getting there, you know? And so sort of feeling, what does freedom look like? What does true abolition look like? What does the world that we want to live in, and those who are going to come after us or who are coming after us, what type of world we want? And then, you know, and realizing there are many who do not want that. So how will we, you know, remain strong in that face of that, you know, no matter what it is that we're bringing to our various international, global, communal, community home tables.
Well, I feel I have a lot to learn from the two of you as theater artists, and as a theater artist, as a purist theater artist in this moment, where I'm like stubbornly waiting for the doors to open, and like you identifying, I know motion, you know, we talk about griots a lot, and Idris, I'm getting a sense of that line, and his hip hop MCs, and always having that that, okay, you know, that fluidity, you know, like, you know, and there's something that's actually very, the griot is that is so, the transcendence of time and space in who the griot has always been a super empowering. You know, thinking about the beginning of storytelling and theater, it's funny how, for me in my brain, I'm still like, no, give me that rehearsal hall now. I don't like, it's just like like there's something to learn from hip hop right now, and to learn from the origins of the traditional storytellers and the griots right now, in what how we're being asked to respond, you know, as theater artists. And I'm also curious about your work as educators. I know, Motion, you're teaching this course right now this semester, from griots to MCs. With young people, how's that working, and what's, you know, in this context of this revolution?
And if I could add to that before you answer, Motion, it is an audience question from Stephen that wanted to ask both of you that how does TYA work? Working with young artists, how does that inform your activism, or how does your activism inform your TYA work?
Motion.
Oh, you want me to answer that? Okay, well, I'll quickly get to what you said, ask Mumbi. Yeah, with teaching griots to MCs, it's on culture, performance and spoken word. And this class was the first one that we were doing strictly virtual, which really made me have to rethink a lot of things, because with a class that's not, we're looking at the sort of the history and the lineage of the griot in different forms, as lyricists, as storytellers, as you know, in theater and film, etc. The lineage of orature and how it lives in us today, but also writing, and having you know, those who are taking the class also putting to practice what they're learning about. You know, how do we, when you're thinking of, let's say, spoken rhyme and hip hop lyricists, how does music and environment affect what you're going to create? Or, you know, when we think about the Black arts movement, what write something from the place of rage or anger or urgency, you know, and so taking little sparks from each one of the eras and utilizing that in their own work. And so it's a very hands-on sort of course, and to get to a place where we haven't met, we're only on the screen, you know, trying to have that same form of safe space where you feel okay, as some are writers, some are not, you know, and you feel safe enough to come in and speak and express yourself and your new writings and new works for unknown audience. But we started to sort of use this little black box as the space, and you know, and me also thinking about how to help to facilitate that, you know, and so it's definitely been a learning experience for me, and learning from them, and because things are happening in real time. You know, we could talk about, you know, let's say the long hot summer of '68, right? We're having a long hot spring right now, right? And so it's interesting to really have that time for the conversation and what is being written in real time, as you know, when you're just coming back from the protest, or you know, when you just watched a video of somebody being murdered by police, or if you just, you know, read the comment section on the Toronto Star, the Toronto Sun, or the Facebook or Twitter, and seeing that, all these hidden little, you know, we thought things were hidden, but a lot of people are using their fingers to express that they don't like this, you know, that this is uncomfortable, and who do these people think they are? And so there's a time at least this is one opportunity to respond, and also express what's happening, the anger, the confusion, also the resilience, you know, within each one of them, and myself as well, because I have to go on that journey too.
You, Idris?
Yeah, well, so I'm doing less direct teaching these days because I'm in the sort of arts administration, the arts leadership space now. I just started at the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center at Colorado College as the director of, and it's one of the few truly multidisciplinary art centers in the nation. So there's a theater company side, there's a museum, and there's an art school for anyone and then it's part of this liberal arts college that they just aligned. And so, but then the pandemic happened. So we're all having to navigate so we opened up a digital wing. And but we're having a lot of these conversations. And one of the recent conversations, we just had this today, is that we see the way that young people are at the front lines of the protests right now, that young people are the ones changing the world, as they always have. Like, young people were pivotal in the civil rights movement. It's always the young. And so we're like, how do we further invest in young voices and the young people in our communities? How do we center them? How do we equip them? Because they're the ones that are going to end the racism. They're the ones that are going to move us forward. And so how do we in the arts and educational space just equip them to take care of us, in the right way? I think my son is trying to make an appearance. So that's kind of the space that I've been living in. Also, too, I still am. I've been home with my family. Like, most of us have been home with our families, and playwriting has turned into something. I've been doing more like writing plays for families to read together. Just like download it and just read it. And so this is, not everybody knows this, but on Monday, I'm dropping five plays called Free. It's a thing called Free Play, and it's open source plays for an anti-racist tomorrow. And they're ways that they're aimed at young families, essentially. So there's one that for like 6 and up. There's two for like 9 and up, and then there's two that are like 14 and up. And they're just like short plays. You read them, and then you they spark the conversation. Then you have a conversation. So 2 of these are to celebrate Juneteenth. So I'm dropping those Monday. So stay tuned through my friends with. Well, I've said too much already. No, I'll just say it. TYA USA, Theater for Young Audiences America, and I are partnered up to do this. So I'm also trying to like create tools, still. So I can't directly educate, but I'm just trying to make tools for families and kids, and especially in this time, where kids are like, yo, like, mom, like, what is, what is happening? Is this what life is? Like, I'm 6, like, what is going on? And it's just a way to help folks out, and we need it too. Like, even the adults, like, we need to figure out, some catharsis as well.
Yes, I was just asked by Cullen to tweet out the link when it comes out. We got you. We will tweet it out, amplify it. Sure. And yeah, I mean, I wrote on the Soulpepper website, I put a blog out, and it was personal. It was about that. It was like the tools to try to tell my son, because Black History Month just passed, and he came home talking about learning about slavery, like days, kind of being like, I think I'm not sure. My father's white and you're Black. I think I'd rather choose to be white, because just in case slavery comes back. This is what he said to me at dinner.
Wow.
He said to me at dinner. And of course I said to myself, I got this. I got all the art. I'm just going to have to flood it more. It's got to flood it more. But then 3 months later, when protests are all across America, and I have to explain to him, it's because, it's a police brutality and he died and he's Black. It's just affirming something, and so it's the urgency of our art we have to flood out those violent messaging. And it's things like this, these pieces of art directly like this, that are going to be the antidote, for that healing, and and tools for us as parents to teach our children. So I personally thank you for that piece.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
And I just want to leave us with a quote from Anna Devere Smith, who she just talks about, I think when things fall apart, you can see more, and you can even be a part of indicating the new ways that things can be put together. And, I think that's just, again, just trying to look at the moments of hope as, there is some of that noise you have to get through, that like, why is this even happening? But generally, I think it's an exciting time for a real conversation. And thank God we have your voices.
Yeah.
Part of that. Thank you both so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mumbi, for guest hosting. People have been saying Mumbi, Obsidian, we have to do a co-pro, so let's get on it. On this work, and yeah, so definitely. And thank you all out there for being with us through this time. And you can always send us your questions or comments at soulpepper.ca about what you thought about the program, other things you want, anything else. Thank you so much. And we also have to thank our sponsors. It's this Fresh Ink is put on by Project Imagination, which is supported by BMO and Roger and Kevin Garland, and the Playwrights Guild of Canada. So thank you so much. Be safe. Take care of yourselves and have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Back to the Afro future, 1965. And I've arrived to roam a pre-riot, pre-crack Detroit, where the blocks are filled with fathers. And because my teenage dad don't need lessons on game and no brothers named Biff, no meddling necessary. My time free, so I spend wild with Doc Brown, named because of his likeness to Julius Erving. Plate in his head thanks to shrapnel, a parting gift from the service where he was in communication. We tinker with some stereo equipment, some old record players. We raid the 45s, and at the get down under the sea dance, I blend the Temptations into the Tops and Mary Wells into the Supremes. But that James Brown I Feel Good smuggled in the passenger of the DeLorean, get 'em grooving, and I get that feeling too. I start cutting it up, crab, transform, scratch, blend. The DJ who hurt his head rushes to long distance call his Caribbean cousin. Yo, Clyde, you know that new sound you've been looking for?